What's going on, everyone? This is Nate the Great coming to you live from the All Sports All Plays network. This is Thursday Full Count with Nate the Great, Ray Cruz, and Greg Hot Seat Galliano. How are the both of you doing?
I'm doing great. Getting ready to go see the Atlanta Braves and the Phillies play tomorrow night.
That should be fun. That should be fun.
Doing well, Nate the Great. How you doing? What happened to the old stat master?
I change it here and there. It depends on what kind of show we're doing today, but that really depends.
Okay.
And next show, expect me to go on a huge rant off of something I saw online that kind of bugs me. Expect that to happen. But next show is next show. This show is this show. And before we get to the topics, we have to do some housekeeping business. And the first one is the Suzanne Paparazzi Jewelry.
Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us, from all of us here at the ASAP Network.
And then Misty Meadows. To remind everyone that if you're out there watching the show right now, all you have to do, if you want to win a free T-shirt, is like the show, comment the show, be engaged in this show. The winner by the end of by the end of the month wins a free T-shirt. But say for a second you're out there, you can't be watching right there at the moment. You're a little late to this and you're listening to Anchor, whatever the case may be, but you still want a shirt. You didn't get one for free. That's okay. Just message one of us. Message Greg, message Ray, message myself, message anyone that's not on this show, but is part of the network, and we'll get you in touch with and make sure that. And all you have to do is pay $14.99 plus shipping and handling. Sizes go from small to 2XL. We'll get and you'll get that shirt in no time. All right. Last week we covered a lot about the opening day. So we actually did not do a top 5 last week. We're going to do 2 top 5s this week for 2 particular teams for MLB pitchers. The first one is the first one that we got to touch is the Washington Nationals. Now, Ray, we were talking a little bit about this before, but you said that it was a little harder for you. What did you end up coming with? I'm kind of curious.
Okay. I started off with Steve Rogers, 1973 to 1985. He was with the Montreal Expos before they became the Washington Nationals. He was the all-time Expos Nationals list in wins, strikeouts, complete games, and shutout. Rogers has a fabulous 1973 debut, posting a 10-5 record with a 1.54 earned run average and 17 starts, but a late start lately cost him the National League Rookie of the Year. So I went with him with number 1. Number 2, I went with Max Scherzer from 2015 to present. His right eye is the blue and his left eye is brown, but the rough. I mean, these stats, man. How you get unless he's got a fake eye in one eye, and how you get the 2 different colors, I don't know. But I think one is like a radar for him. He does pretty good. He's pitching well. Scherzer debuted with the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2008. He moved over. He's a 14-12 record. Scherzer is the first year at Washington may have looked but that's a poor start. But in 2016, he started to cop his second Cy Young Award with a 27 mark and career high 284 strikeouts. My number 3 was Steven Strasburg. You know, you can talk. He talks for himself. 103 mile an hour fastball. You know, one of the tops in Major League Baseball. He's been clocked. You know, his 3.19 ERA over 10 season in DC has been pretty good. He's been a stellar pitcher for the National. He was my number 3. Number 4 was Denius Martinez. He was also a Montreal Expos before moving over to the Washington National. His ERA is lower than anything he produced in 9 full seasons with the Orioles. His high water mark came in 1991 when he held and led the major leagues in ERA with 2.39 and 5 strikeouts and pitched only the 4th perfect game in modern NFL in National League. When he retired in 27 Los Angeles batters he faced at Dodger Stadium on July 28th. So he's a 3-time All-Star with the Expos. Martinez won 100 games with the Expos with a stellar 3.06 ERA. And then my number 5 was Gino Gonzalez, 2012, 2018. He was, you know, let's see here. He was National League Cy Young Award voter. You know, he confessed to PED. So, I mean, you know, he's one of those PED kind of guys, but he still had a stellar career. 2.96 ERA, 15-9 record. 2017 when he posted 15-9 with his ERA 2.96, latter ranked as the National League's 5th best, but 3rd best on the Nationals behind Sizer and Strasburg. So that's my top 5.
Greg, we'll go with you, and then I'll give mine. I'll give my takes on the Nationals top 5.
All right, my Nationals top 5. I'm going to start out in the 5 hole with Gio Gonzalez. He was a pretty consistent pitcher for him. Wasn't exactly, you know, a superb pitcher, but an interesting thing about Gio Gonzalez was he got yanked a lot in the postseason when his teams would make it into the postseason. So he never did get a decision in any postseason. Pitched like 7 or 8 games in the postseason, never did get a decision because he was always yanked, you know, after 4.5 innings. But, you know, he was still a pretty decent member of the Nationals. But, you know, another thing that kind of hurt his legacy too was he kind of got sucked into the biogenesis steroid scandal several years ago. And some players, you know, like Alex Rodriguez and Ryan Braun kind of confessed to it, but Gonzalez still admits to this day that he was clean, and I think that kind of stained his legacy as well. But moving on, I got in the 4 hole, I got Steven Strasburg, and I got Steven Strasburg in the 4 hole, even though he's an outstanding postseason pitcher. In 9 career starts in the postseason, he's got a 6-2 record. His ERA is just a little bit above 2. He was the MVP a few seasons ago in the World Series. Outstanding pitcher, number 1 overall draft pick several years ago. Out of San Diego State, played for the late Tony Gwynn, legendary player Tony Gwynn over there. And you know, I mean, he was just a fantastic player. Still, you know, the ace of the pitching staff over there for him right now. So I got him in there, and he's a big reason why the Nationals, even though they don't have like the greatest overall lineup in their division, things are going to be kind of tight because they do still have excellent pitching with Scherzer and Strasburg and Corbin over there. So I got him in the 4 hole. I put Dennis Martinez, one of my all-time favorite players of all time. Dennis Martinez, you know, he picked up over 100 wins when he played with them when they were the Expos. Interesting thing about Dennis Martinez is he had a lot of demons. He had to fight alcoholism a lot. You know, he ended up getting treatment, almost lost his family, you know, due to his alcohol problems, substance abuse. but he finally got sober and got his life back on track, and he was the leading Latino player to have 243 wins, and was just surpassed a few seasons ago by Bartolo Colon. So that's quite an achievement. The first Latino player to have over 240 wins. And he held that until 2017, 2018. So I have him in the 3-hole, and I think that maybe Strasburg might be a little bit more deserving because of his postseason, but I kind of favor Martinez just because he was one of my all-time favorite pitchers. That mustache, all his personal battles that he had to fight. So I'm putting him in the 3-hole. Then I got Max Scherzer, Ray Cruz in it. Ray brought up, how one eye is blue, one eye is brown, kind of like those old Alaskan Huskies up there, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, what Max Scherzer did, I have him in the 2-hole. Did in the World Series, when he couldn't pitch in game 5 or 6, and he couldn't even get out of bed, and he had severe back and neck pain, and then he worked his way through it, and then he came back and pitched an excellent Game 7 in the World Series against the Astros. Tremendous pitcher. He's been a fantastic pitcher his entire career, whether it was with Detroit or Washington. So I got him in the 2-hole, and then I've got America, Steve Rogers. I didn't really watch Steve Rogers much, but apparently he's a legend. He's their all-time wins leader for the Nationals or Expos organization, and he just put together a fantastic resume, and it sounds like everybody has nothing but good things to say about Steve Rogers. So that's my top 5.
All right. My top 5. Actually, funny thing is, Ray, you and I have the same top 5. So I'll just add on to a couple of things that you mentioned about. Number 5, Gio Gonzalez started off in Oakland, but was traded to the Nationals in 2012. He did confess to steroids, but he had a really, really good year. His best years probably came in 2012 with this Washington Nationals team. He did have another really good year in 2017 with a 2.96 ERA and a 15-9 record. He also wasn't really good in the playoffs, which is why I might have put him at number 5 instead of higher up. Man, when I did my research for number 4, I loved his story. He started off in Baltimore for the Orioles. Dennis Martinez. He played there for about 6 years, and as Greg, as you mentioned with the alcohol thing, once he went to Montreal, he completely changed his life around. With the alcohol, with the alcohol stuff, and B, with how he played the game. His lowest ERA in the majors came that year when he signed the contract to play with the current day Nationals, formerly known Montreal Expos. And in 1991, July 28th, he retired all 27 batters that played for the Dodgers. Number 3 and number 2, they both played for this Washington Nationals team. Steven Strasburg, he struck out 14 Pirates players, while only allowing 2 home runs and 0 walks in 7 innings. He also. The reason why I have him so high is because of his postseason success. He was part of the team that took the Washington Nationals all the way and won the World Series. But keep in mind, he was also part of that team that had a slow start. But then completely changed once it came to that point. And then my number two, with his two eye colors with blue and brown, probably should have put him at number one, but I didn't. I have a different guy for number one, Max Scherzer. He actually when he pitched, he had 48. Yes, 48 scoreless innings. For the Washington Nationals. He earned his second Cy Young Award. Only is the sixth easy. There's only been 6 pitchers, including him, to ever in a Cy Young Award in both leagues. Number one, not the Captain America Steve Rogers, but maybe the Captain Expos Steve Rogers. He had a 1.454 ERA with 17 starts during his first year. Now, next 3 years, he did go downhill a little bit, but still kept it pretty reasonable. Then he completely, he turned around and started to go uphill again in 1997. By 1982, he had passed the 250 inning mark 6 times, twice led in NL shutouts, and was named to 5 All-Star teams. So that's my number one. So we're gonna transition. We're gonna go to the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm actually gonna go first on this. Well, actually, I take that back. Greg, why don't you go first on this? Who are your top 5 pitchers of all time for the Philadelphia Phillies?
Well, this is a pretty deep list. I mean, you got some pretty good Hall of Famers on this list.
Yeah.
Okay? So, right now, I think in the 5 hole, I got a guy that played for them back in the 40s through the 50s named Curt Simmons. Curt Simmons, an interesting thing about Curt Simmons was he got drafted and served in the Korean War, and he was on furlough and was available to pitch and be with the team during the 51 World Series, but they wouldn't let him have any whiff of postseason play. They just kept him out even though he was available and everything. So that was kind of sad that he had some time away and was available and ready to pitch, and they wouldn't let him do anything while, after serving his country over there in Korea. So I don't know. He was just a outstanding guy. He was a good leader for him and everything. It was very unfortunate that how the organization kind of treated him after he came back and was wanting to help them try to win a World Series. But I got him in the 5 hole. It kind of came down between him and Halladay, but I think that Curt Simmons, I put him in there for his service, and he had a really good ERA when he pitched for the team, and it was kind of a toss-up, but I have Curt Simmons in the 5 hole. Moving on, I got a guy named Jim Bunning, played from 64 to 67 and 70 to 71. So he was an outstanding pitcher, won over 100 games with the Tigers. Then he came over to the Phillies, and he was just, he had electric stuff when he was on, and I think that he was a big reason why they were so successful over several of the years that he was pitching. I think he only played for 5 seasons for him, but he was a really good pitcher for him in that pitching rotation. I was kind of torn on the 1 through 3, but for the third spot, I have a guy named Pete Alexander. Pete Alexander was kind of one of those what if stories. He was on pace to be probably in discussion to be on the Mount Rushmore, honestly. He was also another person that served our country. It's basically a big what if. I mean, I think he was on pace to keep up with the great Walter Johnson, who I think is one of the top 4 or 5 pitchers of all time. He was an outstanding pitcher. He had electric stuff. He was a sidearm thrower, had a great curveball. But after the war, he ended up having to fight off epilepsy. He had hearing loss, and then he too kind of succumbed to alcoholism and got very dependent on alcohol later on after his war efforts. But while he was there, he was one of those outstanding pitchers. He won 30 games for 3 seasons in a row back in 1915 to 1917, I believe. And he also was the ERA leader in the National League too for a couple seasons in a row. And he had like a 1.22 ERA at one point in 1916, I believe. So I have him kind of in the third hole. And then the number 1 and number 2, it could go either way. But, I have Steve Carlton in my Mount Rushmore. So I put him into the top spot. But, Robin Roberts, who I have in the 2 hole, could easily have been in there as well. Robin Roberts was a fantastic pitcher for the Phillies. I mean, he gave them everything he got back in the 50s. He was just tearing it up. He had 28 wins and 7 losses back in 1952. And I mean, he just ate up a ton of innings for him. I mean, an outstanding pitcher. I mean, it was just a toss up between him and Steve Carlton. But I think I put Carlton in there because he had more strikeouts and everything. But, a lot could be said for Robin Roberts to be number 1. But I have him at number 2. And then, of course, I got lefty himself, Steve Carlton, as the greatest Philly of all time. Won 329 games, I believe, for him. He had over 4,000 strikeouts. And I put him in there for the sole reason that he's just one of those phenomenal pitchers. He had electric stuff, had a blazing fastball. And there was one season where the Phillies, were pretty much the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Colorado Rockies of baseball, where they didn't do much, and I think that they only won 50-something games or something. But Steve Carlton went out there and won 60% of their games. He was the winning pitcher in 60% of their wins one season. So in a season where they had very low run support, couldn't hardly do anything right, he still picked up 25 wins or more for him in a season where they were pretty much on rebuild. So I have him pretty much carrying that team through that dismal season. So that's why I have Steve Carlton.
Thank you for reminding me. Did Ray? Can you go? What are your top 5?
Well, pretty much the same order, but I changed around my bottom 2. He had Kirk Simmons at number 5. I went with Roy Halladay at number 5. He totaling over 10 years with the Toronto Blue Jays team. Chained to 500 baseball. Halladay was happy excelled to contender when the Phillies, using the time is now philosophy, grabbed him for several hot prospects. Instantly became the ace of ace on a terrific rotation that would grow to include Cole Hamels, Roy Oswalt, and Cliff Lee. Halladay was the first year in Philly was a stagger effort. He threw a perfect game at Miami in his 11th start as a Philly, continuing his knack for on-the-mound durability by leading the National League with 9 complete games, including 4 shutouts, and won the National League Cy Young Award with a 21-10 record, becoming the first Philly in 28 years to reach 20 wins. That's who I went for my number 5. My number 4, I went with Curt Schilling, 1992 to 2000. In 1992, he was 12-9 with a 2.27 ERA after his permanent addition to the rotation. Within a year, he was the king of the staff, helping the Phillies to the World Series with 2 stellar outings in the National League against Atlanta. But interesting in this series, Mitch the Wild Thing Williams came in and blew all the lead that Curt Schilling gave in that series. So he came out with a 0-0 record despite winning the series MVP. So the rest of my tops fall in the order of Greg's. So for the bottom 2.
All right. So my number 5. I gotta go. I'm gonna agree with Greg on this one. I think Curt Simmons. I put him as my number 5. Played in 1947 and 1960. He had a rough first 2 years in the majors. I'll admit that. Hold on, adding him in real quick. He had a rough 2 years in the majors, but once it hit like 1950, he completely turned his career around. He had a 17-8 record, 3.4 ERA, and at age 21. But unfortunately, he was called away to military service around mid-September, with Philadelphia in the first place by 6.5 games. So they were first when Curt Simmons had to be called to serve in the military. Although in his absence, the Phillies blew the pennant. So it gone from first to almost worst, but into the World Series. Well, not worse, but it was bad enough that they almost lost the pennant. Simmons missed all of the games in 1951 while serving the Korean War, but returned a year later, winning 86 games over the next 7 years with a reasonable ERA. But he eventually finished, 1950s decade with a dead arm, and then he was signed with the Cardinals, and then he was phenomenal going on into the Cardinals. My number 4, he had 2 stints with the Philadelphia Phillies. I gotta go with Jim Bunning. He had 110 wins and 5 All-Star game appearances over his previous 7 years at Detroit. The Tigers sent 30. He had 110 wins and 5 All-Star appearances, and the Detroit Tigers still sent him away. I'm sorry. And I thought the Nolan Arenado trade was bad. Okay, getting back on topic. So he went to Philadelphia in 1963, following 2 years of a regressive output that managed that age was beginning to be a factor. The deal, however, became a steal for the Phillies. The right-hander stepped it up and put together, arguably, in my opinion, the best stretch of his career. Barely 2 months in the Phillies, with him being the Phillies, he made believers out of this new team with the opposing New York Mets. But in 1964, he fired all NL first perfect game of the century and he became the first pitcher to throw no-hitters both in the NL and in the AL. Going on to my number 3. Steve Carlton. A 329 game winner who arguably possessed the greatest slider ever thrown. The Phillies received Carlton from St. Louis in 1972 after the Cardinals refused to give him a $10,000 raise. That $10,000 of a raise. And this was and made his former employer look cheap by refusing a remarkable 27-10 record with a 1.97 ERA in a year, which the team, no offense, but the team was awful back then, the Phillies, which otherwise would have been 32-87. It was the first 4 Cy Young Award winning campaigns for Carlton, who earned the honor in 1977, 1980, and 1982. My number 2. He pitched way back in the day. 1911 to 1917.
Wow.
Yeah. So Pete Alexander is my number 2. Before his epilepsy, hearing loss, and depending reliance on alcohol. So he was like with the other. Hold on, I have my notes here. Dennis Martinez. Like with Dennis Martinez, he was a little bit on alcohol here, but he had great days of his Hall of Fame career in Philadelphia, where he was on, he was with the great Walter Johnson during his prime of 1910s. Born with the name of the sitting president, and later portrayed by the film of The Future One. Ronald Grover Cleveland, Pete Alexander. That's a long name. He became like the best 750 of the penurious Phillies ever paid after other teams passed on him due to revelations, due to his drinking, which I understandable. By the way, people watching, I really don't recommend the drinking. But in 1911, he set the rookie cards with 28 wins, 227 strikeouts, 7 shutouts, and the only the later 2 marks have been suppressed. In 1948 to 1961, my number 1 pitcher for this Philadelphia Phillies team, Robin Roberts. So with Robin Roberts, he was there's been a few pitchers who have been toiled, with the lack of a better word, of such a short stretch of baseball as Roberts did for the Phillies in the 1950s. But there was a good reason he used almost to a point of exhaustion. By his third year being in the on the team, Roberts worked himself into a role for the A's for 1950s, quote, the whiz kid Phillies. He was a guy that would work his butt off to do the best that he can. You know, stats alone are phenomenal for this team, but I like his motivation to continue to move on, to continue to do the best that he can playing baseball. Although he did get exhaustion from his pitches, the ones he threw, man, they were phenomenal. All right. The next list. The next list on this. Ray, were you about to say something?
No. I'm just
Okay.
waiting.
The next list. We talked about this earlier before the show started. But MLB, the first week, this has been exactly 1 week since MLB opening day. So I want to know. I have a question I want to know. Not who we think will be in the top 5 when the season ends, but right now, out of what we've seen so far, right now, who are your top 5 Major League Baseball teams that are playing right now? We'll go with Greg on this one.
All right. Well, right now, and of course, I don't think that a few of these teams are going to hold up this pace. But we've seen it before with players and teams to start off hot, and then usually reality kicks in, and they end up kind of where we thought they were going to be. But right now, a couple teams that I got in the top 5 that I don't think are going to be really hot teams the entire season. I've got the Reds and the Phillies. Okay, you can go 5 and 4. You can switch those out any which way you want. But in the bottom of my top 5, I got the Reds and the Phillies playing exceptional baseball right now. Especially the Reds after they got hammered by my Cardinals in Game 1. They've been on fire. They've just been playing lights out baseball. Another team that I thought maybe later on in the season they might get eclipsed in their division by the Angels, and the Angels aren't playing bad baseball, but the Astros are playing really strong baseball right now. I got them in the 3-hole, and then this one's for Brandon Herrera. All right, Brandon, here you go, bud. The Twins. I got the Twins. They're looking good, which I had the Twins probably going to be a top 5 team, overall this season. So I think that the Twins are going to be able to keep it up and keep that going. I think that they're probably going to edge out their division when it's all said and done. And then, of course, you got the Dodgers in the top spot. They're still playing good. They've had some, issues here and there, but they're still looking like an incredibly strong team. And I think that for week 1, they're definitely showing why they're the number 1 ranked team in the league. So that's what I got for my 5 through 1.
Okay, I went looking through the season and stuff like that. So my number 5, I put the Baltimore Orioles at 4-3. Then I went with Minnesota at 5-2 for my number 4 spot. And then I went with the Dodgers at my number 3 spot. The Reds at my number 2 spot, and put Philly as my number 1 spot.
I'm gonna go 1 through 5. I'm gonna go off on a hot take a little bit here, and I'm only putting this particular team, and I get it. They had a weak schedule. But I have the Reds at 1. They had a weak schedule. I get it, but 14 runs in one game. And I get it. They got blown out on opening day. But what did they do after that? 9-6 the next day. And then they blew out the Cardinals. Number two, I'm going. Number two, I got to go with the Phillies. Man, they have one loss. One loss, which actually was not yesterday, but on the 6th, on April 6th, when they played, when they lost 8-4 to the New York Mets. But they, on opening day, this Philadelphia Phillies team, they only allowed, even though it was a 2-run home run, they only allowed 1 home run. And that 1 home run wasn't any one of their major key players on that team. That 1 home run was off of a guy who's only played once in the 2019-2020 season. So I got to go with the Phillies at number 2. I'm sorry, I know you're wearing the Land Braves hat, but I just
hey, don't bother. It's still early in the season.
Yeah, I know. It's still early in the season. Reds and Phillies, they're probably not going to make the number 1, number 2.
I'll get my revenge this weekend.
Yeah, I could see that. So my number 3, I got to go with the Astros. The Astros right now, I thought they were going to be. Athletics are surprising me this year. I'm just saying that. I didn't think they were going to win the division, but I know it's only early. I get it, but Astros played the Athletics and swept them. There's been games where the Astros, win games like 8-1 on opening night against this Athletics team. They played 9-5, 9-1. It's just been complete blowouts. Now against the Angels, it's been a little bit easier, a little bit more competitive, I should say. Losing 6-7, and then they did beat the Angels after that. So they're playing the Athletics right now. I probably should put that one up there. But that's who I have at number 3. My number 4 is the Dodgers. Because why not? My number 5, Brandon, I'm actually going to go with your Twins. They've been on a roll as well. I have the feeling that they're going to win the division this year. I get it that the White Sox are 3-4. That's who I have going second. But again, the White Sox are playing against another team that I have a feeling that they're going to have another strong year as well, the Angels. So that is my top 5. Which goes into the next topic. We saw the first week of baseball. Ray, I'm going to go with you first. What are some of your highlights from opening week that you thought were pretty cool?
I thought it was pretty cool. It's going to be sad. I think the Phillies, the Phillies came out and blistered the Braves. I mean, that surprised me because I thought the Braves would at least in that opening series go 2 games to 1, maybe. Not getting their butts kicked 3-0. Get a sweep right on opening day. But that, and then the Colorado Rockies win over the Dodgers. I think that was a surprise. A lot of people too. That was a highlight right there because soon I got finished watching the Braves get their butt whooped, I turned over to that game and watched the rest of that game. And that actually turned out to be a pretty good game all the way up to the end when the Rockies took the victory. And that one. But then the one that really surprised me is the Fernando Tatis injury. Him swinging that bat that hard.
Ooh.
That's a bro. I'm surprised he ain't having surgery. That tells you something about his workouts because that swing was brutal. That was a brutal swing, brutal injury. They talking about he's going to probably be about, they say that type of injury is going to be like at least 6 weeks at the typical, but it's they are hoping he'll come back in within before that 6-week time frame. But that right there, that swing that killed me, man. That just hurt me, made me hurt when he swung and hurt himself like that. So that's my take out of the first week of baseball. My Braves getting swept like that. The Colorado Rockies beating the Dodgers, and then that swing by Tatis, and because that was brutal. I mean, he made a big contract, and now he's on the injured list.
All right, Greg, we'll go with you. What are some of your highlights of what you've seen for opening week?
Well, one thing I gotta go with is old Shohei Ohtani. He came in, and in the same game, he hit 101 on the radar when he threw a pitch, and then he hit when he hit a pitch out of the park, he had the fastest home run exit velocity. So he's in one game he threw the fastest pitch recorded for the season, and he's hit the fastest ball leaving the yard in the same game. So that's quite a feat for a pitcher that can also hit, hitting the ball out the fastest, like 120 something miles an hour, and then he was clocked at 101.2 miles or something like that on one pitch. I think it was in the same inning as well. And then Ray just talked about it. Fernando Tatis, we really don't know exactly how long he's going to be out. I'm really hoping and praying that it's, I got the Padres making a deep run this year for the playoffs with him in the lineup. And I really hope that it's not incredibly serious. But as we know with torn labrums and stuff, sometimes most times it is a surgical issue. So I'm just praying for the best that he's not going to be out that long, but sometimes it could be a season-ending injury. It just depends on how severe and what they got to do for it. But yeah, he signed that massive contract, and he's a generational talent. And it's just sad to see a top player like that go down, especially so young in his career and so early in the season. You hate to see these things happen, but it seems to happen every single year in sports. Big name players going out, getting injured. We see it in every league, whether it's hockey, NBA, or baseball or football. So I'm just really hoping and praying for the best with Tatis. I'm really pleased, even though my Cardinals dropped 2 games to the Red Hot Reds. They came out strong, put up 12 runs in their opener, and they're sitting at 5-2, and they're still pretty good. I just can't believe how competitive the National League Central is going to be this year. I mean, outside of the Pirates, it's pretty much, any team in there could really take it. The Brewers, they got a decent team. They're an excellent defensive ball club. The Reds are playing great. The Cubs don't seem to be missing too much of a beat, even though they've gotten rid of quite a few of their players from their World Series championship team. And of course, my Cards, they're still getting solid play. And Yadi Molina, 38 years old, he's still out there just hammering doubles and making it happen. So that's my take so far for the season.
Hold on one second. I'm doing something. So I saw a couple of games. I actually saw 2 games from the Pittsburgh Pirates, one against the Chicago Cubs, and the Reds games. I saw today's Chicago Cubs versus it was Pittsburgh. But I also saw the Chicago Cubs and Milwaukee Brewers. I guess highlights of the week for me is one of the games I saw, the Baltimore Orioles versus the Boston Red Sox. I loved that game. I love that game because it made history. A. And B, it went down to the last batter. It went down pretty close to the last batter. It was ninth inning, 2 outs, 2 strikes, 3 balls, a guy on second, and a guy on third. The score was 3-2. If the pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles throws a pitch and it gets a home run, then the score would have been, final score of that game would be 4-3. But that's not what happened. Strikeout and Orioles win. The reason why it made history, that game made history, is because the first 2 games, this was the second game of that series, the first 2 games for the Boston Red Sox, they only scored 2 runs, which was the lowest in Boston Red Sox history since 1976. Was the last time that they scored that low or something lower. So I love that game because it made history and it went down to the wire. There's something else. Game 2, I believe. Cardinals versus Cubs. Not Cubs, Reds. That brawl. I saw a little bit, but what were your thoughts on that brawl? The little fight that went down with the catcher. Did you see what was going on?
Are you talking about the Reds game?
The Reds Cardinals game.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big fight that ended up happening with the.
Because the guy got hit by a pitch.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you get hit by a pitch. I understand the reality of it. I think it's just a big stunt by the teams trying to get in a big brawl or something. But I mean, you getting hit by a pitch, just take your base. I mean, it's kind of dumb. You getting grown men going up and trying to fight each other because you got hit by a pitch. It's baseball. I played baseball in high school and I played baseball in Little League. I was known in Little League as a person who had a magnet that the ball liked to hit. I got hit so many times. I got more hit by a pitch than I did hitting the ball with a bat. So I know how you're getting hit by a pitch and stuff like that. But I know they're balls coming in hard and stuff like that. But grown men fighting over you're getting hit by a pitch. It's not worth it. And in that fight, the guy that got ejected, he had retaliated. It's always not the first person. It's always the retaliation is the ones that get penalized the most. So that's my thought about it. I think the fight was kind of dumb. It was kind of overblown, and it was no call for. I'm glad they went on and suspended these guys. Maybe they learned their lesson.
Ray? Not Ray. Greg?
Well, this is a part of baseball that I wish that they'd clean up a little bit because we've seen it time and time again. We've seen a lot of fights over the years. Every single year, there's always several big fights that always happen. There's bad blood or there's something going on. Sometimes these fights start because something happened an inning before or the game the night before or something, and then the pitcher comes out and trying to stand up for his team, throws an intentional pitch, with the intent to hit the batter. I can understand a team's displeasure with something like that that's purely intentional, but on certain pitches, when a pitcher's trying to maybe hit the inside corner or something like that, and the pitch gets away, and you can tell that it's completely unintentional. They just need to rub it off and take their base. I can understand if a pitcher's out there and, like Roger Clemens did a lot of this, where he would pinpoint and kind of headhunt and everything. And if he wanted to, he could knock somebody's helmet off. That's very dangerous part of baseball, is when you're going out and you're trying to play sweet chin music with the opposing team, whether you have excellent control or not. You're talking about guys' livelihoods here, and you've seen it. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough where it can really damage someone's career. We've seen people get intentionally hit where it breaks their wrist or breaks a finger, or breaks a bone, or puts them out for a few weeks with a deep bruise or something like that. And they just need to clean up this stuff. I'm getting tired of seeing people come out just because the other team hits a home run or something. The next inning, the pitcher gets all mad and hits the next person that comes up and everything. And I think that, a lot of people get excited over the fights, but it's just not. I think that they need to kind of clean up this kind of area of the game, because intentionally hitting people and stuff like that, people need to just kind of clean up their attitudes and everything, and just dust themselves off and play a little bit, focus on baseball. That's what I think.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more. Actually, we'll go to this segment. You had a particular stat that you wanted to share with us. Well, actually, it was a question kind of similar to Tuesday's edition of Full Count, but better. Ray, you have a question stat thing. So can you take the lead on this?
You're talking about the question for the April 8th, 1984. I messed up the year. It's 1984. This major league player played his first major league baseball game. The answer to that question was Jeff Benedorf. Nobody heard of him. He only played 3 games.
Wow.
That's his whole career. He played 3 games his whole career. But he debuted on April 8th, 1984.
Wow.
And he played for the Oakland Athletics.
Oh, makes sense.
At 24 years old. Huh?
Why couldn't you went with Jim Abbott? He was April 8th, 1989. We all know who Jim Abbott is.
Yeah. This guy, he only played 3 games, but his career ERA is 4.66, and he had 1 save, and he pitched at 9.2 innings, and he gave up 9 hits, 5 runs, and 3 home runs. And if he walked 5 batters and didn't give his strikeouts, but yeah, but he only played 3 games his whole career. I thought that was very interesting. So,
okay.
Well, as they say in Major League Baseball, some people only get a cup of coffee.
He didn't get a cup. He didn't get enough to get a cup of coffee. He didn't never get a gift certificate. He only stayed in California for 3 games.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who went to a high school nearby the school that I went to. He kicked 1 game. 1 game. He made one punt. Yeah, 1 punt for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, but the NFL stands for not for long.
Yeah.
I haven't come up with a slogan for Major League Baseball yet. I have to figure that one out.
Okay. Yeah, probably by Monday. By Monday, we need to all figure something out.
I have to figure something out for them.
I thought with all the rule changes that the NFL has every year, it'd be the no fun league.
Yeah, but
They're always
not
with
for
the rules.
but not for long. I mean, you got players getting cut left and right. And coaches gone after a certain amount of years. So, not for long, not for fun, not for long.
All right. So it's getting there. It's getting close to time. Before we wrap it up, there is one more advertisement we need to make, and for all those people that are watching this show, for all those people that want to check us out on Anchor, all you have to this is where you need to go. Listen to it, but this is where you need to go. Anchor.com, Anchor.fm, excuse me. And if you want to start your own podcast, Anchor is another way, a good way to start. I started my first show. I started off of a different app, and then I transitioned to Anchor because I didn't like the previous editing settings. So if there's something that Anchor is an easy way to edit. It's free, and you can get paid. You can get money off of doing podcasts on Anchor. So if you want to start your own podcast, Anchor is a good way to start. So, Greg, we'll go with you first. Any final comments before we get to the close?
Well, it was excellent to see the fans in Baltimore just stand up and give a standing ovation to a player that has been fighting cancer for a while now. And the sad reality is that even in the prime of their lives, cancer is something that can hit anybody. So professional athletes, old people, young people, kids, cancer is just something that doesn't really care, who you are and what your status is in life. So it was just fantastic to see a player whose last name is Mancini battle cancer and make his way back to the ballpark. And it was just a tremendous outpouring of love for the guy, and it's great to see him in a Orioles uniform again. And my heart goes out to him and his family for how courageous he's fought over the past few years with his cancer diagnosis. So I just wanted to send a shout out to the Mancini family and the Orioles organization.
All right. Next episode on Real Talk, two of us, Kenny and myself, on two different topics. We'll be going on a huge rant. So stay tuned in for that. And this has been Ray, Greg, and I signing out for now. As soon as I find the video. Oh, right here.